Okay, so we are live on YouTube as well. Good night, Doctor. Can you start? Yes, I'm starting exactly right now. Yeah, also need to get the chat, and there we go. Okay, so I have the chat from YouTube. Yeah, everything's... So, let's begin. So, heyo, I'm Doctor Ekelus, the first Brazilian Scientist VTuber, and today we are talking about bioethics. Let's go. So, it is one of my favorite topics on sciences, because it really doesn't have a lot of answers, but it forces us to make some questions. Science constantly gives new possibilities and technologies, but the bioethics part of it asks whether we should whether or how we should use them. Brazil mentioned, let's go. Come to Brazil. Okay. So, what is exactly bioethics? What it entails? So, bioethic is the word it's the word you get when you mix biology and ethics. So, biology, the study of living things, and ethics, the set of moral and principles and values that guide the behavior of individuals or a group of society. So bioethics then studies how biological knowledge should be applied while respecting humans' morals and values. So why do we need bioethics? Well, let me show you. This here is a graph of the timeline of science history. I really love this graphic. So it is very full of stuff, but you have the many scientific discoveries: engineering, in math, physics, chemistry, biology, and you see we discover quite a lot of things. That's pretty cool. Yeah, this map's really cool. We discover a lot of things, many things. So science can evolve faster than society because we have many scientists trying to discover new things every day. So those new discoveries are very exciting, but they can create some conflicts because society not always adapts at the same rate. So we have one example of it happening with AI right now. So we don't really have a good regulation for AI. Flashbacks to lessons about World War II era science war crimes. Exactly. Oh, that's a good example. There was already science to make things, but the ethics of it wasn't up to par. So, on the AI example, well, AI is already a part of our lives. We're not gonna deny it. Whenever you try to Google something, the first answer you get is an answer from an AI, from the Gemini, right? So we can't escape it anymore. And there is another example. One example that is a bit more on my area. It is on genetics a bit. Hey teacher, I'm writing the information of the section. I can share the slideshow sometime. So let me make sure. Okay. So here we have CRISPR. If anyone doesn't know how CRISPR works, CRISPR is like how do I say it? Quotes is a genetic scissor kind of deal, because you can cut the DNA with it. CRISPR-Cas9 is this protein that we call CRISPR. Well, we actually don't cut the protein CRISPR. The protein is Cas9, and the technique is CRISPR. What it does is it gets a piece of DNA. It attaches signaling RNA attached to it, so we can attach to the DNA. So we know specifically the region we want from the DNA, and we can make cuts on that DNA. And from that cut or from that strand break, we can either do an insertion or a deletion. So we can knock out a gene, and we can also knock in a gene. To knock in a gene, we also need to provide the pair bases, but I'm not gonna get too much into it because it will be another live stream for itself. So we have the non-homolog joining and homolog director repair. That's the two things that we do in CRISPR. So we can virtually edit everything on the DNA as long as we know the bare bases for it. So we can theoretically edit anything in the genome. Yes, and then let's go for the example. There's the thing, how should we use CRISPR? CRISPR is a relatively new technique. It was from 2009, if I'm not too mistaken. I think it's 2009. So, this is an example of what you probably shouldn't do. So, if you don't know, this guy right here, he's a Chinese scientist that the scientists use gene editing to modify Chinese twins. Allegedly, we don't know if he was exactly right on it, but allegedly modifying a gene in order to reduce the susceptibility of those twins to an HIV infection, because the father was an HIV carrier. So yeah, at first glance that might sound like a good intention and a good thing to do. However, after all, preventing the disease is something that medicine strives to do. So the thing is, this has never been attempted before this guy did it, and we don't really know about the safety of the procedure as well. So the children could not consent to the procedure, and it carries unknown risks. And even if we could, there is not really a necessity for doing it, because he only decreased the susceptibility. It doesn't mean that they would actually develop the HIV, right? And also, the genome is an entirely complex network, so genes don't exactly act in isolation. I wish I had my presentation on epigenetics before this, but yeah. So genes are quite messy because not all traits in the human are modified by one specific gene. You have an amount of genes that contribute to the same trait or the same characteristic. Okay. Yes. So changing exactly one gene could have unintentional consequences that would only appear years or generations after, because we don't exactly know how exactly it works. So because of those ethical violations, this guy was convicted and he was imprisoned in China. If I'm not mistaken, he was in prison for 3 years, so he should be already out. But I don't know. I don't know much more about him. The news about him kind of faded away as well. So, there we go with the principles that makes bioethics bioethics. So, the principles of bioethics, we have those four standards, right? So, you have the beneficence. It needs to promote the well-being of others. A non-maleficence, so it needs to avoid causing unnecessary harm. Also, autonomy, respect the people's right to make informed decisions. And justice, to treat people fairly and distribute the benefits and burdens equitably. And that's why almost every universities have ethical committees to make sure those principles are not harmed in any research. And yeah, you can already imagine what can be harmed when you take an embryo and start modifying it already. There's the thing, this is a great question that bioethics normally does, is should we do it? So the one thing about bioethics that is a bit challenging is the four principles don't always, or maybe I am anti-ethical, maybe we all are. Society needs to decide on what is ethical together. So yeah, the four principles, they don't always point to the same decision. Because on one side you have the beneficence. For example, you decrease the chances of the twins to have HIV infection. Sure, that benefits them. However, if we have the technology like CRISPR, we can eliminate the genetic disorder and everything. However, there is the non-maleficent. So our responsibility to avoid causing harm wouldn't be really up to date, because you are editing something that you don't exactly know how it's gonna behave in the future. So gene editing isn't always as simple as it appears. Genes don't work in isolation again, and they also interact with other genes, regulatory, DNA, proteins, developmental pathways, etc, etc, etc. So a change that may appear to be beneficial could have an intended consequence. And then I'm gonna get a bit more on my field, because I can talk a bit more about it, obviously. So the question of the embryo. So an embryo doesn't really have an autonomy, because what is it, right? In some cases, in some countries, an embryo can't even be considered like a person, right? It's not fully developed yet to be considered a person. So it's kind of a thing, you know. So yeah, what entails that autonomy, right? Autonomy requires the ability of making informed decisions. Obviously, an embryo can't make a decision for itself. So therefore, the decisions of the embryo are usually made by the parents, together with medical professionals and everything. But how far should that parental decision go is something to discuss as well. In some cases we can discuss are designer babies. So the idea of designer babies, what is the idea? The idea of designer babies is that you can you can take CRISPR, you can do genetic alterations, genetic modifications in some genes to edit an embryo. So making an embryo have some traits, some specific traits that you would like as a parent. And obviously, many parents would like a harder, better, faster, stronger baby. However, remember, we are not all a single gene. There is also a study from 2009, this study right here, that measured the common genetic variation in human traits. And for example, one of the traits they examined was the height, and the height trait was around 93,000 single nucleotide polymorphisms to explain it. So yeah, it's a lot, and it would be a real piece of work to edit all of them to make sure your baby had the specific height, right? Hello Victor, I'm doing a presentation live stream. This is also gonna be on YouTube, and I'm going to take the VOD and make it subtitles in Brazilian Portuguese as well. Maybe I should actually increase the music a bit. Maybe not. I think that's good. So yeah. What was I? Yes. So yeah, there you have it. And genetic editing of embryos really needs a bit more discussion. Really needs a bit more discussion, because regulations are not that far yet. As I mentioned before, the regulation and the ethics about it don't really follow in the same speed of the new technologies. So you have that. And as of now, as of today, on my knowledge, transferring genetically edited human embryo is illegal, with the purpose of making a pregnancy, of establishing a pregnancy. I think it is illegal in virtually every country that I know of. I haven't ever heard of transferred edited human embryo to pregnancy. However, we kinda already select what traits we want, because there is I think there is the donor selecting. So you can select donors whenever you have a case of infertility where one of the partners doesn't have the necessary materials to make the reproduction. Yes. So this is the thing where parents can simply choose which donor they want, which egg donor, which sperm donor they want. And in some countries, it's not every country, it's the specific case for Brazil, for example. In Brazil, we can't have this. You can't really know much information about the donors. You maybe get some traits because to make the baby a bit more closely in likeness to the parents, but you can't really check everything that a donor has. You can check the education. You can actually see some genetic information if they have some kind of genetic disease as well, but you can see much more than it. But I know there are some places in the USA where you can actually see quite a bit, actually. So you can see the scholar degree of the person, of the donor. You can see what they have achieved in life for whatever reason that would have. Yes. And sometimes even hobbies of the persons as well. So that kind of raises a question. Is choosing like a donor with specific traits that the parents would like, is it any different from choosing, for example, let me say, you wanna choose a donor that has exactly blue eyes because I would like to have a blue-eyed baby for some reason. So would it be any better or any worse than choosing a person that hasn't any genetic disease in the familial history? So there are quite a few strong arguments on that debate as well. And some people argue that selecting for the non-medical traits risks turning the reproduction into a consumer choice. So you can exactly kind of make your baby with that in mind, with those traits in mind. And restores actually social basis. And other people argue that we have always made choices. When you like to relate with a person, you like to relate with her, with the person, because of maybe you have interest in some specific characteristics. So, for example, we can imagine a person that likes blonde girls, or a girl that likes guys with blonde hair, for example. I feel choosing a donor is more similar to choosing a partner. Exactly, that's the point. Rather than the gene editing, when you say, I don't like this, get rid of it. Exactly. Yes, that's my point. So, on the IVF community, on the fertility? Yeah, on the... If I had a choice, I wanted to have arms. Hello, funerário! Minhas noches, estou fazendo uma live em inglês para fazer a apresentação de hoje. Mas logo depois dessa apresentação fica salva no YouTube com as legendas em português também. English, yes, we are talking English. If I wanted a choice, I had 4 arms. Damn, the baby with 4 arms. So, yes, the community, the IVF community, the primary goal is to make the child the more compatible as it can be with the parents. There's a thought experiment. Would choosing a partner also choosing traits that my future children have? To some extent. For example, we know eye color, for example. We know that eye color has a thing about recessive and dominant genes, right? So, for example, if you have a partner that has blue eyes or green eyes, there is a higher chance of your baby with that person to have a blue or a green eye than it would have if the person had like brown eyes, for example. Even if you have brown eyes, you would increase the chances of it. Yep. What was I talking about? Yeah. So yeah, the goal of the IVF is to make the child more compatible and also reduce the risk of genetic diseases, because we don't want to spread genetic diseases. Makes sense. So it's not about creating like the perfect embryo, the perfect children. But the ethical challenge is deciding what is it more reasonable to choose a medical thing, or is it reasonable to decide on, example, what eye color should my baby have? And it is something that we don't exactly have many jurisdictions on. Again, as I spoke, many different countries see this in different ways. For example, Brazil, we don't have this, and on the US, I believe from each state it varies a bit. So in some states you can have something like this where you can see everything, and some states you don't really see much as well. You only see genetic information, but I wouldn't be able to mention which state is which. So again, to show the complexity of it. So this is a survey from a research in Portugal, which they went and asked university students' opinions on gamete donor identification regimes, for example. So this poll was made from university students with Portuguese nationality or residency in Portugal, and the ages were between 18 and 35 years old. So when we did, the recipients should be able to choose the donors, for example. So approximately 44% of the participants had a favorable opinion. So the recipients should be able to know, to choose actually the donors, to choose the characteristics as well, maybe. And approximately 23% were neutral and 34% were against it. So there wasn't a clear consensus. So you can imagine how hard it can be to legislate on it, because you have to depend very much on the people that are making the legislations for that. And this is even with a young and relatively well-educated population, right? So even then, the opinions were divided. Okay, let me dispense this. Let me go ahead and okay. So another point on IVF. So these here are some magazines. Maybe you guys know her. It's the Louise Brown was the first IVF baby. Was from England in 78, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, July 25, 78. This month I believe she was going to be almost 50 years old. Yes, almost 50 years old. Not very good with math. Where's Poison? I need it. Yeah, and from these images, they are quite good images, right? They are quite positive in message. So you wouldn't be really able to tell, but when it was happening, the discussions about Louise Brown being a IVF baby, it wasn't really a consensus that it was a good thing. So it had a bit of controversial. So many people questioned whether the scientists should even be creating embryos outside the human body. And today, well, we have a case of more than, I believe it's 12 Yeah, a bit more than 12 million babies have already been born with IVF, with some kind of assisted reproduction. And for many families, those treatments have become almost a routine part of life. So, there are some people that still oppose IVF for some reasons. It could be religious, it could be ethical, even philosophical. While others can see it as an invaluable medical treatment for infertility as well. So, the bioethics isn't really about making everyone reach the same conclusions, because you can have your opinions, right? You are able to have your opinions and express them as well, as long as you are not harming anyone else, right? So it's a bit more about encouraging the thoughtful discussion of it, while respecting the different perspectives that society can have. So, and this reminds us that the ethical perspectives can also evolve when you go back to that map we spoke before. So we couldn't see the same things. We couldn't see the same things we had seen in the past with the minds we have today, right? We have to analyze how things are exactly right now and how things were back then, when we hadn't that many advances in ethics as well. So, as well as when the evidence of the scientific finds they evolve over time, the regulations also need to evolve over time. And that's the thing, right? The regulations take a bit more time because people need to discuss it before. But just to show that the public perception can also change, and including the media, right? The magazines, for example, they really played an important role on helping to make those discussions a bit better, because the importance of the magazines at that time was to help bring those discussions to the public and making the technology behind IVF a little bit more demystified, because they made some way to explain it that was pretty good, pretty interesting. Even though they had to say this phrase, like the test tube baby, and we don't make babies in test tubes, we make them in petri dishes. Yep. And just to end the presentation, so even though in history science has continually expanded what humans are capable of doing, we have learned how to perform IVF, we have learned how to edit genes, we have learned a bunch of stuff. We are now actually learning how to use AI, for example. So every new discovery brings some opportunities, but also some responsibilities. And the bioethics is here to ensure that scientific progress benefits people while respecting the dignity of human life. The dignity of human life, the autonomy of human life, the justice, and even the safety. Something that we need to do to make it for AI as well. We need to force a bit, because AI is advancing already quite fast enough, and the regulations are not as fast. Are not as fast. Yep. So we shouldn't have intelligence to make a constructive question. No worries, no worries. So yes, the question is the question that bioethics kind of wants to make is, should we do it, right? Because if we ask the science aspect of it, if we can't do it already, the probable question of can you do it, science eventually can make a way of doing it, even if it's not straightforward. Yeah. Please, if you have comments, even if you don't have comments for now, if you have any questions, I will make a VOD of this. But please, if you have questions, leave a comment. I would love to answer some questions as well. Imperial Umbro was to have human rights. Oh, that's a good one. So, In my specific opinion, as an embryologist, as a person who is specialized in human-assisted reproduction, the embryo can't have human rights because it ain't classified as a person yet. It doesn't have responsibilities. It doesn't have. It has some rights, but not exactly all rights. So, embryo. My belief and the belief of many other embryologists as well is that it is still a cell. It is a cell that can potentially lead to life, but it isn't yet. So it doesn't really have all the rights of yet. It will probably have the rights whenever it is implanted in a uterus. Then it will begin to have more rights than it would when it is just a cell in a petri dish. And that's really interesting because the thing is, when you assume an embryo can have human rights, there is a thing about cryogeny, because we can preserve the embryo in a cryogenic tank with what is the a nitrogen tank. And the thing is it ethical to, if the embryo had human rights, would it be ethical to freeze someone for an extensive period of time? So that's why I don't really believe that embryo should have most human rights. But that again is a question for further legislation, legislations as well. But if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like and share it. It helps a lot the channel continue producing science-focused content, and it was a pleasure sharing this knowledge with all of you. Scientific hugs from the Doctor, and I'll see you in the next video. Kazahe, hi, hello, thank you for the raid. I'm just now ending the scientific part of it. Hello, Kazahe, hello, hi. It gets weird to the point where it goes from science to almost philosophy. Yes, exactly. So bioethics is a bit of that. Let me end the stream on YouTube. No, you are not. No, I ended the scientific part of the stream, but